I'm back with another video for Esportsbet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix. This one's going to be for the Blast Fall Finals event in CSGO. But if you've never bet crypto with Esportsbet, did you know they still have their classic first-time deposit bonus of 50% on up to 200 USDT? And if you don't have any money, any crypto in the world at all, but you still want to make predictions and potentially win some money, then you can still enter. There's something like 25 days left on their World's Prediction Series 2 competition, which is a 10 million USDT prize pool competition, free to enter. Normally when you enter it, they give you 1,000 DJT to play with and make bets. First players up to 300,000 USDT. Now, if you go to the Discord, discord.gg/esportsbet, message the mod mail, they'll give you 50,000 DJT to start with. Okay, so much like for the major, they now offer outright odds for the entire tournament when it's big events in CSGO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you go over to the esports hall. I'm going to pick Tether. USDT is what I'm using as my currency. Once it loads up, instead of going to the CSGO tab, where by the way there's loads of CSGO to bet on, there's all the Blast games, CCT, is that like smaller like tier 2 competition, ESEA, all these ESL Challenger, Impact, which is the female league. Oh, there's loads to bet on, but you don't go there. That's the normal betting on matches. You scroll all the way down through all the games to outright. You're going to see there's going to be one in here at the moment because there's no Worlds, no TI anymore. And here we go, Blast Fall Finals. That's what we're looking at. So obviously this is a competition, remember. You have to look at the format of Blast. One of the things that makes Blast pretty sturdy is it's a smaller tournament, less teams. It's all best of 3, and it's a very forgiving format. So what they do is they do 2 4-team GSL groups, and then the top 3 teams, so only one fails, only the team that goes 0-2 is eliminated. The other 3 teams all go to the playoffs. Winner skips to the semis. The second and third players, second and third from the other group, obviously flipped over, and then basically the playoffs is the same as an ESL event. It's like the round of 6, so there's the 2 quarterfinals, then you have the 2 semis, then you have the final. The last edition of this event, remember, was won by Na'Vi with SDY, some guy young, a big part why he got to stay. By the way, spoiler, I expect it to be cut after this event, quite frankly, unless Na'Vi outright wins it. He looks amazing. Maybe even so, after it went with the major. And then, obviously, it was the one where, shockingly, the old Vitality, before they got Spinks, had that, like, one last run, got past G2, who at the time themselves hadn't done the same player moves, and got to the final, but didn't really show us anything, and Na'Vi just looked way better. So coming into this one, the key thing is, because the format is so forgiving, no BO1s, you know your opponents in the group stage, you're almost certain to get to the playoffs unless you're actually one of the worst teams there. And then I'll throw in as well, because it's a Blast, you're never going to get the top 8 teams in the world. There's always going to be a couple of weird ones. One weird one will come through the showdown. One's just some team that's a good partner team that gets to be there anyway. And so we have a couple of those names. So as a result, this actually, I actually think is an easier event to predict who will win the total tournament, which is what we're trying to do. But also at the same time, I do think that there's chances for nobody teams, but they've got to really just do it like the easiest possible way. Like in theory, you can win this whole event by just winning 4 best of 3s. So I think if you were one of the Fluxos of the world, you have to do it that way. There's no way you're going to survive through like 5-6 best of 3s against the quality of this competition. So we'll just start at the top. Na'Vi is the favourite to win the event with 3.333 odds. I sort of get it because, let's be real, Na'Vi went further than FaZe at Pro League. Neither team did anything reasonably at the major. Like, yes, Na'Vi won their way out and got to the playoffs, but they looked actually appalling against Furia. That was really underwhelming. I have to say, I don't like this bet. I don't think the odds are actually... I need to be higher for Na'Vi. I don't think they are the odds-on favourite to win the whole event. Like, Bit has looked so whack this year generally. He hasn't really got it going. Electronic looks like he's being hit by being the IGL at this point. SDY just doesn't really do anything. Don't really know what the point is anymore. Perfecto's still good, and even he doesn't win as many clutches. And Simple actually looks off the pace later in tournaments. He does it all at the middle point. He's still going to be the player of the year, but he's not that deadly. And actually, he looked really out of sorts at the major. And I thought Na'Vi, the last 2 tournaments, Pro League and the major, have just been the worst tournaments of the year for Na'Vi, in my opinion. So this is not actually the moment when I feel they're like super duper strong. Look, let's be real. They are still a favourite to win the major, to win this tournament rather, the Blast Fall Finals. But I actually think I don't like them in terms of the odds here. I don't think the odds are high enough. I think they're too low. I think too many people must be assuming because it's like, you just win this or any games, and also because they won the last blast, they'll be getting pumped up. So I don't like them at 3.33 personally. FaZe at 4.0, right? FaZe has obviously had their worst run overall, right? At Pro League, sure, more of a studio land, didn't really do much. And at the Major, yes, there were fans and there was an element of pressure and a stage aspect, but it wasn't the playoffs. I have to say, I haven't given up on FaZe. Like, I know these odds are amazing, but actually I'm going to take these odds. I think this is actually I'll go ahead and I'll bet 1,000 on them. I'll say 4 odds is actually good enough. I think crucially in this tournament, you know your opponents generally. You have time to prep for them. Very forgiving. You're not going out 0-2. You're going to win at least one series. And then also, I'll add in, I actually think, look, the pressure angle might not be that crazy, but I think the odds are still good because I think the intangibles FaZe has shown me this year, there's a reason they've won the most tournaments, guys. There's a reason they can overcome having one player have an off tournament. I think this is the team to bet on personally, so I'm going to go ahead and bet the 1,000 myself. 1,000 USDT on FaZe to win the event. Now let's look at the other ones. Right, for Team Liquid, I just think these odds are too low. Like, I don't hate the one for Team Liquid overall. I do think they're a bit overrated. Like, I prefer teams like Vitality or Cloud9 or maybe even Outsiders to win tournaments ahead of Liquid. But okay, the problem I have here is I just don't think they can be the third favourite. I think that's too much. If they were down here, like 8.3, 10, I would snap your hand off. I'd take them immediately. Then there's a world where that makes sense. But the problem is I haven't actually seen that Liquid's got the true quality to get over the line. People like Yekindar sometimes don't look as good at the big events. This isn't necessarily the biggest of events, but sometimes fade a little bit. The OC factor still is nowhere near cemented like fans hoped. He is not this dominant AWPer, and quite frankly, they just look pretty average when he doesn't have good games. Elige is getting better again, but even he has games that are off. Naf's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, it's still an all over the place team. It's not bad, but I don't think they should be considered a favourite. So I wouldn't take this 6.25. I personally would not suggest taking this heroic one. I will say there is a universe. I think it's more plausible they win than Team Liquid at the moment. But I personally think the odds just aren't high enough. I want them to be up at a 10 or an 8.33. People are riding them high because of the Major. Remember, guys, at the Major, they almost bombed in that semi-final to Furia because of the pressure and all that jazz. Yeah, they looked awesome in the third map. There almost wasn't a third map the way that they were playing. So I'm not a big fan of this heroic one. I love this G2, but I actually think G2, these are high enough odds. Remember, this team, yeah, it's probably a dead team. It's probably not playing again together, especially if it doesn't win this event. Like, I think that usually frees people up. I think people like Monacy, Nico, Hunter, they're just going to be free to play the game. They're not going to worry about it too much. Hoxie, you shouldn't have too much pressure on you. You know you get booted anyway, mate. There's no way you stay in this team. And actually, I think people have taken their RMR result and they've gone too far the other way. Like, this team could have won Pro League. This team could have easily made it through the RMR. They didn't. They had one bad couple of days. Okay, it's at the end of the world. Even then, it's not like they got ultra smashed or anything. So, like, I think this is way too whacked away. People completely abandon this squad. There's so much quality in this. Like, what if Monacy is like the MVP of the tournament and Nico only has to be like, what, the 9th highest rated player and they win the whole event? Like, guys, this can happen. Like, this should be one of the better fragging teams at the tournament. So I actually think G2, not a bad one either. In fact, maybe I'll just put a cheeky little 100 on them. Just to show you, I think as my outside dark horse, I quite like them. Then you've got NIP at 10. Like, look, obviously I said for the Major they should be one. I actually think this isn't bad. It's just, I'd like the odds to be a little bit higher. I do think this is not a bad cheeky one. The fact you don't have the true good AWPer, yes, that is going to be hard. So it would be implausible to say that like they could be anything less than this. But I don't think the idea that they actually do like a deep run here, I think they could make a semis run. I think it's totally plausible. OG, look, it's not actually that terrible, the idea they could win. Like, the actual firepower, it's not impossible this team could triple and be one of the miracle teams in history that wins a tournament. It's just that even when that firepower turns up like the Major, they just don't look like that good an actual team. Like, Nexus doesn't really seem like he's doing a very good IGL job. Maybe he's a good player, but as an IGL, doesn't really seem like it's working for him, quite frankly. I'm quite underwhelmed by what they get out of the team, so I don't think 12.5 is enough. Just don't think it is. And then Fluxo at 50. Look, if you want to take a really crazy punt, do like 100 on Fluxo at 50. Because, like, in theory, like I say, you could just win the 4 best of 3s and have some miracle, like old school, like 2014 Navi stuff where you used to have like Guardian Flame, not even Flame back then, Seized or whatever. And if you had like the one-off miracle run, you could win a Star Series or something. But I don't think, obviously, it's totally implausible. They should have the highest odds. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. They have still got some reasonable people. Like, Phelps has not chopped the other guys, legit. But again, yeah, I just don't buy the idea that in a tournament people know who you're playing, you're all best of 3s. No matter what route you take out, you're going to run into a couple of the best teams in the world at some point. The key thing about this tournament for me is when you go and look, because there is no outsiders, and then you don't have Vitality, Cloud9, you don't have all the middle pack, I actually think this is a really weird tournament, because what it is it's two of the teams who absolutely dominated the year, Na'Vi and FaZe Clan, and you feel like one of them's going to bounce back and win the event. Then you've got teams who really want to win a fucking event this year. Team Liquid, Heroic and G2 need an event win this year. It'll be so huge for them. They're sort of your pretty solid, like, dark horse picks. Then you've got, like, basically Nip and OG. Like, expectations are non-existent for them. They're just whatever squads. If either of them does a deep run, it's big for them, though, and sort of proves some of the players in their roster deserve to be there. And then Fluxo, I don't even know how they're at this event. So for them, they're just the crazy wild outsider. So remember, go to the outright section if you want to bet on the winner, outright winner of Blast Fall Finals.